the story of King Nigra. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Bahimam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna, Kesava, Krishna, Kesava, Krishna, Kesava, Bahimam. Very good. So it's chapter 63 and the story of King Nigra. So we were halfway through. So King Nigra had remained in the well as a big lizard for a very long time. He told Lord Krishna, in spite of being put into that degraded condition of life, I simply thought of you, my dear Lord, and my memory was never vanquished. It appears from these statements of King Nigra that persons who follow the principles of fruitive activities and derive some material benefits are not very intelligent. Being given the choice by the superintendent of death, Yamaraj, King Nigra could have first accepted the results of his pious activities. Instead, he thought it better first to receive the effects of his impious activities and then enjoy the effects of his pious activities without disturbance. And who hasn't thought like that in previous situations? On the whole, he had not developed Krishna consciousness. The Krishna conscious person develops love of God, Krishna, not love for pious or impious activities. That's a brilliant point. Not love for pious or impious activities. Therefore, he is not subjected to the results of such action. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, a devotee, by the grace of the Lord, does not become subject to the reactions of fruitive activities. Somehow or other, as a result of his pious activities, King Nigra had aspired to see the Lord. He continued, my dear Lord, I had a great desire that someday I might be able to see you personally. I think that my tendency to perform ritualistic and charitable activities, combined with this great desire to see you, has enabled me to retain the memory of who I was in my former life, even though I became a lizard. Such a person who remembers his past life is called Jati Smara. My dear Lord, that's Ratnavali, isn't it? She could, she's on the festival team, she can remember her previous life. Yeah. My dear Lord, you are the super soul stated in everyone's heart. There are many great mystic yogis who have eyes to see you through the Vedas and Upanishads. To achieve the elevated position of being equal in quality with you, they always meditate on you within their hearts. But although such exalted saintly persons may see you constantly within their hearts, they still cannot see you face to face. Therefore, I am very much surprised that I am able to see you personally. I know that I was engaged in so many activities, especially as a king. Although I was in the midst of luxury and opulence and was subject to so much of the happiness and misery of material existence, I am so fortunate to be seeing you personally. As far as I know, when one becomes liberated from material existence, he can see you in this way. When King Nigra elected to receive the results of his impious activities, he was given the body of a lizard because of the mistake in his pious activities. Thus, he could not be directly converted to a higher status of life like a great demigod. However, along with his pious activities, he thought of Krishna, so he was quickly released from the body of a lizard and given the body of a demigod. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, those who desire material opulences are given the bodies of powerful demigods. Sometimes these demigods can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, but they are still not yet eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom, the Vaikuntha planets. However, if the demigods continue to be devotees of the Lord, the next chance they get, they will enter into the Vaikuntha planets. Having attained the body of a demigod, King Nigra continued to remember everything, and he said, my dear Lord, you are the Supreme Lord and are worshipped by all demigods. You are not one of the living entities. You are the supreme person, Purushottama. You are the source of all happiness to all living entities. Therefore, you are known as Govinda. You are the Lord of those living entities who have accepted material bodies and those who have not yet accepted material bodies. Among the living entities who have not accepted material bodies are those who hover in the material world as evil spirits or live in the ghostly atmosphere. However, those who live in the spiritual kingdom, the Vaikuntha Lokas, have bodies not made of material elements. You, my Lord, are infallible. You are the supreme, the purest of all living entities. You live in everyone's heart. You are the shelter of all living entities, Narayan. Being seated in the heart of all living beings, you are the supreme director of everyone's sensual activities, and therefore you are called Rishikesh. My Supreme Lord Krishna, my dear Supreme Lord Krishna, because you have given me this body of a demigod, I will have to go to some heavenly planet, so I am taking this opportunity to beg for your mercy, that I may have the benediction of never forgetting your lotus feet, no matter to which form of life or planet I may be transferred. You are all-pervading, present everywhere as cause and effect, and you are the cause of all causes, and your power is unlimited. You are the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Brahman. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. My dear Lord, your body is full of transcendental bliss and knowledge, and you are eternal. You are the master of all mystic powers. Therefore, you are known as Yogeshvara. Kindly accept me as insignificant dust at your lotus feet. Before entering the heavenly planets, King Nriga circumambulated the Lord, touched his helmet to the Lord's lotus feet, and bowed before him. Seeing the airplane from the heavenly planets present before him, he was given permission by the Lord to board it. And after the departure of King Nriga, Lord Krishna expressed his appreciation for the king's devotion to the Brahmanas, as well as his charitable disposition and his performance of Vedic rituals. Therefore, it is recommended that if one cannot directly become a devotee of the Lord, one should follow the Vedic principles of life. This will enable him one day to see the Lord by being promoted, either directly to the spiritual kingdom or indirectly to the heavenly kingdom, where he has hope of being transferred to the spiritual planets. At this time, Lord Krishna was present among his relatives, who were members of the Kshatriya class. To teach them through the exemplary character of King Nriga, he said, even though a Kshatriya king may be as powerful as fire, it is not possible for him to usurp the property of a Brahmin and utilize it for his own purpose. If this is so, how can ordinary kings who falsely think themselves the most powerful beings within the material world usurp a Brahmana's property? I do not think that taking poison is as dangerous as taking a Brahmana's property. For ordinary poison there is a treatment, one can be relieved from its effects. But if one drinks the poison of taking a Brahman's property, there is no remedy for the mistake. The perfect example was King Nriga. He was very powerful and very pious, but due to the small mistake of unknowingly usurping a Brahman's cow, he was condemned to the abominable life of a lizard. Ordinary poison affects only those who drink it, and ordinary fire can be extinguished simply by pouring water on it. But the ironic fire ignited by the spiritual potency of a Brahman can burn to ashes the whole family of a person who provokes such a Brahman. Formerly, the Brahmanas used to ignite the fire of sacrifice, not with matches or any external fire, but with their own powerful mantras, called Arini. If someone even touches a Brahman's property, he is ruined for 3 generations. However, if a Brahman's property is forcibly taken away, the taker's family for 10 generations before him and 10 generations after will be subject to ruination. On the other hand, if someone becomes a Vaishnava or a devotee of the Lord, 10 generations of his family before his birth and 10 generations after will be liberated. Hare Krishna. Lord Krishna continued, if some foolish king who is puffed up by his wealth, prestige and power wants to usurp a Brahman's property, he should be understood to be clearing his path to hell. He does not know how much he has to suffer for an unwise act. If someone takes away the property of a very liberal Brahmana who is encumbered by a large dependent family, then such an usurper is put into the hell known as Kumbhipaka. Not only is he put into this hell, but his family members also have to accept such a miserable condition. A person who takes away property which has either been awarded to a Brahmana or given away by him is condemned to live for at least 60,000 years as miserably as an insect in stool. Hare Krishna. Therefore, I instruct you, all my boys and relatives present here, do not, even by mistake, take the possession of a Brahmana and thereby pollute your whole family. If someone even wishes to possess such property, let alone attempts to take it away by force, the duration of his life will be reduced. He will be defeated by his enemies, and after being bereft of his royal position, when he gives up his body, he will become a serpent, giving trouble to all other living entities. My dear boys and relatives, I therefore advise you that even if a Brahmana becomes angry with you and calls you by your names or cuts you, still you should not retaliate. On the contrary, you should smile and tolerate him and offer your respects to the Brahman. You know very well that even I myself offer my respects to the Brahmins with great respect 3 times daily. You should therefore follow my instruction and example. I shall not forgive anyone who does not follow them, and I shall punish them. You should learn from the example of King Nika that even if someone unknowingly usurps the property of a Brahman, he is put into a miserable condition of life. Thus the Lord, who is always engaged in purifying the conditioned living entities, gave instructions not only to his family members and the inhabitants of Dwarka, but to all the members of human society. After this, the Lord entered his palace. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 63rd chapter of Krishna, the story of King Nika. Very good. Very good. So it's interesting. So, that's right. So, so we should only accept that which is allotted to us and which we're destined to accept, and we take more than that, then we're considered a thief. And especially if we take the property of, or even touch the property of a Brahmin. So to be on the safe side, we may not even recognise a Brahmin. So to be on the safe side, we should just accept what's allotted to us as our quota. Okay, so this is chapter 64. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. Confirmed. Lord Balaram became very anxious to see his father and mother, Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda. Therefore, with great enthusiasm, he started on a chariot for Vrindavan. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had been anxious to see Krishna and Balaram for a very long time. When Lord Balaram returned to Vrindavan, all the cowherd boys and gopis had grown up. But still, on his arrival, they all embraced him, and Balaram embraced them in reciprocation. After this, he came before Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda and offered his respectful obeisances. In response, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj offered their blessings onto him. They addressed him as Jagishvara, or the Lord of the universe, who maintains everyone. The reason for this was that both Krishna and Balaram maintain all living entities, and yet Nanda and Yashoda were put into such difficulties on account of their absence. Feeling like this, they embraced Balaram and, seating him on their laps, began their perpetual crying, wetting Balaram with their tears. Lord Balaram then offered his respectful obeisances to the elderly cowherd men and accepted the obeisances of the younger cowherd men. Thus, according to their different ages and relations, Lord Balaram exchanged feelings of friendship with them. He shook hands with those who were his equals in age and friendship, and with loud laughing embraced each one of them. Hare Krishna. After being received by the cowherd men and boys, the gopis and King Nanda and Yashoda, Lord Balaram sat down, feeling satisfied, and they all surrounded him. First, Lord Balaram inquired from them about their welfare, and then, not having seen them for such a long time, they began to ask him different questions. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had sacrificed everything for Krishna, simply being captivated by the lotus eyes of the Lord. Because of their great desire to love Krishna, they never desired anything like elevation to the heavenly planets or merging into the effulgence of Brahman to become one with the absolute truth. They were not even interested in enjoying a life of opulence, but were satisfied in living a simple life in the village as cowherd men. They were always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and did not desire any personal benefits. And they were all so much in love with him that in his absence their voices faltered when they began to inquire from Balaramji. First, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Maya inquired, "My dear Balaram, are our friends like Vasudeva and others in the family doing well? Now you and Krishna are grown up, married men with children. In the happiness of family life, do you sometimes remember your poor father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi? It is very good news that the most sinful King Kamsa had been killed by you, and that our friends like Vasudeva and the others who had been harassed have now been relieved. It is also very good news that both you and Krishna defeated Jarasandha and Kalyavana, who is now dead, and that you are now living in a fortified residence in Dwarka." When the gopis arrived, Lord Balaram glanced over them with loving eyes. Being overjoyed, the gopis who had so long been mortified on account of Krishna and Balaram's absence began to ask about the welfare of the two brothers. They specifically asked Balaram whether Krishna was enjoying his life surrounded by the enlightened women of Dwarkapuri. Does he sometimes remember his father Nanda and his mother Yashoda and the other friends with whom he so intimately behaved while in Vrindavan? Does Krishna have any plans to come here to see his mother Yashoda, and does he remember us gopis who are now pitifully bereft of his company? Krishna may have forgotten us in the midst of the cultured women of Dwarka, but as far as we're concerned, we still remember him by collecting flowers and sewing them into garlands. When he does not come, however, we simply pass our time by crying. If only he would come and accept these garlands we have made. Dear Lord Balaram, descendant of Dasarath, you know that we would give up everything for Krishna's friendship. Even in great distress, one cannot give up the connection of family members. But although it might be impossible for others, we gave up our fathers, mothers, sisters, relatives, without caring at all about our renunciation. Then, all of a sudden, Krishna renounced us and went away. He broke off our intimate relationship without serious consideration and left for a foreign country. But he was so clever and cunning that he manufactured very nice words. He said, "My dear gopis, please do not worry. The service you have rendered me is impossible for me to repay. After all, we are women, so how can we disbelieve him? Now we can understand that his sweet words were simply for cheating us." Protesting Krishna's absence from Vrindavan, another gopi said, "My dear Balaramji, we are of course village girls, so Krishna could cheat us in that way. But what about the women of Dwarka? Don't think that they are as foolish as we are. We village women might be misled by Krishna, but the women in the city of Dwarka are very clever and intelligent. And therefore, I would be surprised if such city women could be misled by Krishna and could believe his words." Then another gopi began to speak. "My dear friends," she said, "Krishna is very clever in using words. No one can compete with him in that art. He can manufacture such colourful words and talk so sweetly that the heart of any woman would be misled. Besides that, he has perfected the art of smiling very attractively, and by seeing his smile, women become mad after him and would soon give themselves to him without hesitation. Another gopi, after hearing this, said, "My dear friends, what is the use in talking about Krishna? If you are at all interested in passing time by talking, let us talk about on some subject other than him. If Lord Krishna can pass his time without us, why can't we pass our time without Krishna? Of course, Krishna is passing his days without us very happily, but we cannot pass our days happily without him." When the gopis were talking in this way, their feelings for Krishna became more and more intense, and they were experiencing Krishna's smiling, Krishna's words of love, Krishna's attractive features, Krishna's characteristics, and Krishna's embraces. By the force of their ecstatic feelings, it appeared to them that Krishna was personally present and dancing before them. Because of their sweet remembrance of Krishna, they could not check their tears, and they began to cry without consideration. Lord Balaram, of course, could understand the ecstatic feelings of the gopis, and therefore he wanted to pacify them. He was expert in presenting an appeal, and thus treating the gopis very respectfully. He began to narrate the stories of Krishna so tactfully that the gopis became satisfied. To keep the gopis in Vrindavan satisfied, Lord Balaram stayed there continuously for 2 months, namely the months of Chaitra, March and April, and Vaisakha, April and May. For these 2 months, he kept himself among the gopis, and he passed every night with them in the forest of Vrindavan to satisfy their desire for conjugal love. Thus, Balaram also enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis during these 2 months. Since the season was springtime, the breeze on the bank of the Yamuna was blowing very mildly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, especially the flower known as Kumudi. Moonlight filled the sky and spread everywhere, and thus the banks of the Yamuna appeared very bright and pleasing, and Lord Balaram enjoyed the company of the gopis there. A demigod known as Varuna sent his daughter Varuni in the form of liquid honey, oozing from the hollows of trees. Because of this honey, the wild forest became aromatic, and the sweet aroma of the liquid honey, Varuni, captivated Balaramji. Balaramji and all the gopis became very much attracted by the taste of Varuni, and all of them drank it together. While drinking this natural beverage, all of the gopis chanted the glories of Lord Balaram, and Balaram felt very happy, as if he had become intoxicated by drinking that Varuni beverage. His eyes rolled in a pleasing attitude, and he was decorated with long garlands of forest flowers. And the whole situation appeared to be a great function of happiness because of this transcendental bliss. Lord Balaram smiled beautifully, and the drops of perspiration decorating his face appeared like smoothing morning dew. While Balaram was in that happy mood, he desired to enjoy the company of the gopis in the water of the Yamuna, and therefore he called the Yamuna to come nearby. But Yamuna neglected the order of Balaramji, considering him intoxicated. Lord Balaram became very much displeased at Yamuna's neglecting his order. He immediately wanted to scratch the land near the river with his ploughshare. Lord Balaram has 2 weapons, a plough and a club, from which he takes service when they are required. This time, he wanted to bring the Yamuna by force, and he took the help of his plough. He wanted to punish the Yamuna because she did not come in obedience to his order. He addressed Yamuna, "You wretched river, you did not care for my order. Now I shall teach you a lesson. You did not come to me voluntarily. Now, with the help of my plough, I shall force you to come. I shall divide you into hundreds of scattered streams." When Yamuna was threatened like this, she became greatly afraid of the power of Balaram, and immediately came in person, falling at his lotus feet and praying thus: "My dear Balaram, you are the most powerful personality, and you are pleasing to everyone. Unfortunately, I forgot your glorious, exalted position, but now I've come to my senses, and I remember that you hold all the planetary systems on your head merely by your partial expansion as Shesha. You are the sustainer of the whole universe, my dear Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are full of 6 opulences. Because I forgot your omnipotence, I mistakenly disobeyed your order, and thus I've become a great offender. But my dear Lord, please know that I'm a soul surrendered unto you, who are very much affectionate to your devotees. And therefore, please excuse my impotence and mistakes, and by your causeless mercy, may you now release me. Upon displaying this submissive attitude, Yamuna was forgiven, and when she came nearby, Lord Balaram wanted to enjoy the pleasure of swimming in her water along with the gopis, in the same way that an elephant enjoys himself, along with his many she-elephants. After a long time, when Lord Balaram had enjoyed to his full satisfaction, he came out of the water, and immediately a goddess of fortune offered him a nice blue garment and a valuable necklace made of gold. After taking bath in the Yamuna, Lord Balaram, dressed in blue garments and decorated with golden ornaments, looked very attractive to everyone. Lord Balaram's complexion is white, and when he was properly dressed, he looked exactly like the white elephant of King Indra in the heavenly planet. The river Yamuna still has many small branches due to being scratched by the plowshare of Lord Balaram. And all these branches of the river Yamuna still glorify the omnipotence of Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram and the gopis enjoyed transcendental pastimes together every night for 2 months, and time passed away so quickly that all these nights appeared to be only one night. In the presence of Lord Balaram, all the gopis and inhabitants of Vrindavan became as cheerful as they had been before in the presence of both brothers, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta report of the 64th chapter of Krishna. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan.
Jai Balaram.
Jai Balaram. What an amazing pastime. So we'll just... okay, so chapter 65. This is the deliverance of Pandraka and the king of Kasi. Another humorous pastime. The story of King Pandraka is very interesting because there have always been many rascals and fools who have considered themselves God. Even in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there was such a foolish person. His name was Pandraka, and he wanted to declare himself God. While Lord Balaram was absent in Vrindavan, this king, Pandraka, the king of Kurusa province, being foolish and puffed up, sent a messenger to Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but King Pandraka directly challenged him. So he challenged Krishna through the messenger, who stated that Pandraka, not Krishna, was Vasudeva. In the present day, there are many foolish followers of such rascals. Similarly, in Pandraka's day, many foolish men accepted Pandraka as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because he could not estimate his own position, Pandraka falsely thought himself to be Lord Vasudeva. Thus the messenger declared to Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, King Pandraka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had descended onto earth just to deliver all distressed persons.
He's very merciful.
He's very merciful.
Positive.
Yeah, we should be very merciful. Surrounded by many other foolish persons, this rascal, Pandraka, had actually concluded that he was Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This kind of conclusion is certainly childish. When children are playing, they sometimes create a king amongst themselves, and the child selected thinks that he is the king. Similarly, many foolish persons, due to ignorance, select another fool as God, and then the rascal considers himself God, as if God could be created by a childish play or by the votes of men. Under this false impression, thinking himself the Supreme Lord, Pandraka sent his messenger to Dwarka to challenge the position of Krishna. The messenger reached the royal assembly of Krishna in Dwarka and conveyed the message given by his master Pandraka. The message contained the following statements. Okay, that's the end of it. It's time now. But one quick point. I remember some years ago when I used to play in bands or something, there was a band and someone told me this actually. There was one band and they were doing a cover version. They were pretending they were some band like the Spice Girls or something. They used to be famous a couple of decades ago. And I remember this person, they actually thought they were. They actually thought they were. You know, that's what happens, you know. It's childish play. Anyway. Okay, so Krishna Bhakti. Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening. Tune in tomorrow. Jai. Oh.
Good timing.
Nanda.
I was hearing
Amanda.
Balaramji and Bhakti.
That's good.